Let's talk about a period everyone seems to like talking about. The Great Revolt of Judea against Rome. A very messy time. It took place during the reign of Roman Emperor Nero and later Vespasian. I would like to discuss a single person throughout this revolt, the character of Josephus Flavius, the historian, known then as Joseph, son of Mathieu, a priest and a general. Joseph is a controversial figure in Jewish and Israeli historical memory. On one hand, he deserted the revolt and turned himself in to then General Vespasian. On the other hand, while serving Emperor Vespasian, he remained true to his people. He recorded many historical facts and accounts that are still used today. So history judges Josephus for his betrayal of his soldiers and for choosing life over suicide. But the average person sees a lot of common sense in his choice of life. So for many, he is not your typical turncoat. He's more of a sensible individual. Let's try and put the circumstances first and relay the context of the Jewish revolt. Emperor Nero's reign began in 54 AD. He wasn't a very hands-on personality, to say the least. He preferred the arts on management, definitely didn't like military engagements. This was probably felt throughout the empire. 7 years after Nero's assumption of power, in 61 AD, a great revolt took place in East England and ended with a terrible disaster. But for a while, Queen Boudica had the upper hand. In 64 AD, the Great Fire of Rome took place. It looked as though Rome was handling quite a lot at the time. There was the fire, then there was a plague, and there was a flood. Much of Rome's resources went to handle its misfortune. Provinces under its rule felt that vacuum of power. And to this vacuum of power entered the mob. Now, in Judea, the Jewish zealots gained more and more power. In 66 AD, there were riots against the Jewish population in the city of Caesarea. That was the trigger for the Great Revolt against Rome. Here enters the young and resourceful Joseph, son of Mathieu, as the priest and general of the Galilean front against the future Roman retaliation. So Joseph was in charge of fortifying the Galilee and of the northern front. So for 2 years the Galilee was fortified, ammunition was stored, arrows, people trained for the war, defenses were built, food and water was hoarded. While all this was taking place, mental indoctrination of the forces was at its highest. Many had sworn not to fall into enemy hands, to prefer and choose self-inflicted death to torture and slavery. This was not a Jewish invention, it was common practice. The town of Jotfat, known then as Josepata, was the first to be besieged by the Romans. General Josephus was in command. The Jewish defenders fought fiercely for about 6 weeks, but they were no match for the Roman war machine. When they realized that the walls had been breached, they met in a cave for counsel to discuss what should be done next. There were about 40 of them. Josephus gave the final briefing. It was decided in advance. They had made arrangements for each one of them to kill the man standing next to him, until the final man standing takes his own life. That final man turned out to be Josephus, the leader. In the morning, he turned himself in to Vespasian and was accepted as a war captive. You can see that by turning himself in, it made him very unpopular with the rest of the Jewish zealots. Town by town, the Galilee fell to the Romans, but no one forgot that first time where Josephus turned himself in. He later became part of Vespasian's household. While Vespasian was emperor for about 10 years, Josephus was a scribe, a historian. He was adopted as a son. He produced several books that have survived till this day. Much of what we know about the first century in Judea the Great Revolt, the fall of the temple in Jerusalem, Masada, we know from his accounts. The Great Jewish Revolt ended in a catastrophe, as many had, and had a great impact on the Jewish way of life and even on the religion. We will talk about Jerusalem and Masada in the next few chapters.